the newest Big Ten trophy. Again, it's unofficial. So basically what happened, it's the $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy, right? And a couple years ago, Fo Polini was on Twitter, and he went back and forth with Goldie the Gopher on Twitter. And basically the exchange got to the point where Fo said, if we win, you give me $5. If you win, I get to smash a wooden chair over your back. Goldie said, all right, I'll go along as long as we can turn that into a trophy for next year's game. It started as a joke, but it's a real thing.
The Big Ten.
Thank you.
So if you guys beat Minnesota, will you take home the $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy?
Yeah, sure.
You will? All right, cool. Thank you.
He's wearing the number 22, guys.
It is Jack Hoffman of Team Jack coming out on the field right now in this 4th down and short.
For the red team.
Jack Hoffman, who's been adopted really by this football team, a young man who has battled brain cancer, is on the field right now for the Huskers.
One more snap for Taylor Martinez, too, who will hand it off to Jack.
Taylor Martinez really quarterback.
So Taylor gets the shotgun set, gives it to Jack. Here he goes. He's got blockers out in front.
There he
Jack
goes.
is running the midfield. Listen to this crowd as Jack Hoffman, a young man that, as I mentioned, has really been adopted by this football team, just scored a touchdown.
Oh, wow. What a moment.
And both benches empty.
That was a moment right there. Wow, goosebumps.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast, the Husker Fan Sports Show.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast. I'm your host, David Gaspers, and I'm with Honky.
Gentlemen, I know the Huskers have been disappointing over the last several years, but don't worry. They're closer to a 9-win season than it appears. Unfortunately, I'm talking about basketball.
Well, that'd be an improvement, though, right?
I think, yeah.
Also with Boomer tonight.
Well, I'd like to note Redcast Rob is currently not with us. I do want some breaking news that I have heard he is a candidate for an Arizona State podcast job. So keep your eyes peeled for further developments there, everyone.
Is he quiet quitting on us, Boomer?
It could be, but yeah, I wouldn't want to either way. I don't know. So.
Well, maybe Rob might be able to join us later. We'll see. He had a work engagement that he could not get out of. But Honky, it was a frustrating Saturday there, watching Nebraska lose to Illinois, and a lot of things transpired there that led to that loss, namely Casey Thompson and an injury that led to backup quarterbacks and a pretty muted offensive performance in the second half against the Fighting Illini. Thoughts?
Yeah, we took an offense I'm not very fond of to begin with, and we neutered it. So
it made it worse.
It was really not a great day there to be in the stadium and watch it. But defense, I guess, played hard. That was nice to see, and stood their ground, I thought, as well as I thought they would be able to do against Illinois. So that part's pleasing. It's going to be hard this next month. We're into November now, and these 4 teams, this is going to be physical football, and we're going to have to bring it every week on offense or on defense. And on offense, we're going to have to find ways to not, whether it's scoring points or not, just taking some time off the clock. I mean, just basic things. We got to do basic things well. So
yeah, it's true. Yeah, Boomer, I mean, defensively, 6 points in that second half, at least something that you could point to.
Yeah, that was a positive of sorts. I mean, some of it was, I think, Illinois just was not frightened of our offense, so they didn't want to.
We were trying to score that hard.
Yeah, they didn't, like, especially when that 4th and 1. I was really surprised they didn't go for it on 4th and 1 down there, but they've been burned on some 4th and 1s earlier this season, so maybe they just felt, our kicker needs practice, so go with that. But yeah, so if there's a positive, they did limit the scoring, but they still were able to control the clock and control that second half. And the offense certainly wasn't doing the defense any favors, especially in that second half. What did we have in the second half for total yardage? 20-something? I mean,
22 yards, maybe 15 yards passing, something like that. It was ridiculous.
I sent out a tweet from the stadium with about 5 minutes or about 10 minutes left in the second quarter. and we had about 200 yards offense. And we are on pace to have 600 yards offense. And I kept looking up at the clock every 5 minutes, and then it gets to half, and then you're in the third quarter, and it never changed. We were constantly at like 225 yards. I'm like, what is going on?
Bizarro world, right?
This is insane.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this show will make some progress as we go forward. But unlike that offense, but there's Rob. Holy cow!
Wow, that's not a Kool-Aid shirt, Rob. What is that?
Well, I had a work event.
You actually have a real job, Rob?
I do.
Thought that was just fake.
I do. I work for the fake news media. So I yeah. And I was in an event of anyway, sorry. And time got away from me. So,
right.
Well, he might be interviewing for another job, Boomer. This could be, for the Arizona State podcast. I mean,
I wasn't kidding with this breaking news. Yeah, look at it right there. So,
that's funny because my literal hot take to start the show was going to be like, because I knew I was going to be cutting it close, was going to be, sorry, I'm just coming back from an interview for the Arizona State podcast. So that's a good call.
Figured. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for having me. Yeah. It was at a distillery too, 477 Distillery. If you're ever in Greeley, Colorado, you should try it out. So I'm drinking an old fashioned. I try to get them to call it the Rob Steinberg, but it's called the Living Legend.
Well, we should get some free stuff from them for giving them some airtime.
Speaking of promos, Honky, would you like to take care of some business for our sponsors tonight?
Absolutely. We mentioned this for the first time last week, and we're starting to get a little bit more details going, but we'll let that come out here in the next couple of weeks. But the Go Big Redcast live at Hale Varsity Club Friday, November 18th will be at 6 p.m. And we're trying to get a guest or two here. We'll also have a special Redcaster that's going to be joining us as well with it. Looking forward to that. The Hale Varsity Club or Hale Varsity use promo code REDCAST at halevarsity.com/subscribe. Excuse me. And you'll get a 10% off your annual subscription to Hale Varsity, which then you can go and turn around and go to the Hale Varsity Club with that subscription. And you can get, I believe it's 10% off of your food and drinks while you're there. So, it keeps giving. Alumni Hall, 2 Lincoln locations, downtown 1120 P Street and South Point Pavilions, 2910 Pine Lake Road. Get yourself all your good Husker gear there. And last but not least, Smack and Smooch custom shirts, specialty items. Find them at Facebook and Twitter. Shane and Laura out there in Elwood. I've got a new shirt here, and we're going to be giving away some stuff, some more swag at the Hale Varsity show. And so we've got more koozies here and more shirts, and we've got some female shirts this time. They have like the V-necks, and I mean, it's all kinds of good stuff. So
I didn't know shirts had a sex.
They are unisex T-shirts, and some men do prefer V-neck shirts, Honky. So
what? I was told those were female shirts. Well,
that was Shane who said that.
Okay. Women's tees, would that be more appropriate?
No, they're actually unisex.
I mean, female shirts. This seems odd. I don't know. I don't know. Is that the right terminology?
Probably a better way of me saying it than that, but I have been drinking martinis ever since Saturday. So
cheers, Honky.
Or the Redcast on the rocks. Off the wagon edition going on here.
By the way, to catch Rob up, we had the intro music, the videos were all dedicated to the $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy this weekend against Minnesota, including the Team Jack run that, of course, the reason we include that is that it's a charity in addition to being an unbelievable trophy. It's also a charity, and the Nebraska side of it goes to Team Jack. And so Boomer, while we were showing that, we have our little private chat here, and he goes, "That's a better rushing attack than we've had in years." Was highlighting Team Jack's run, and it was a great run. So we wanted to highlight that.
Oh, it was good blocking. That's why.
Yeah.
Do we have a format for this tonight too? Because Mickey said some interesting things in his press conference.
I'm going to let Dave. Dave runs the format tonight.
Yeah, I just can't wait to talk about it because I was actually really shocked at his response. So let's get there when we can. Yeah.
A couple, actually, in a very short amount of time. I just wanted to maybe wrap up the diagnosis, I guess, of the Illinois game, and then we can kind of move forward and turn the page. Boomer, I was trying to think of a game that this resembled or felt like, because it was and maybe there's so many of them they've all blurred together, or maybe this was unique. But I mean, like, to Honky's point, we had 200 yards of offense before you knew it, and we're up 9-6. and then the turnover happens, the injury happens, and Illinois takes the lead. But it was more than that. It really, because of the challenges offensively, the game it was over almost immediately at that point. There was nothing left. And Honky, you were at the game. I don't know if you were there, Boomer. I mean, what did it seem like, I guess, live or from your perspectives?
Well, I wasn't at the game, but I you're definitely right. Once Thompson went down, it just felt like everyone was deflated, and then not settling on a quarterback. Starting with Smothers, switching to Purdy. I don't quite understand the switches there. I know they thought they were behind and needed to play catch up. Well,
we needed to throw the ball, right?
Yeah, we needed to throw the ball. So, all right, fine.
Down by 11. That's it was unsurmountable. Some of the times when Adrian would get hurt, like against Colorado in the game, and then we kind of deflated there, and then the game against Troy the next week, we just looked out of sorts. Our backup wasn't at all ready for the moment, for whatever reason. Well, so it kind of reminds me of those sorts of affairs right now. Just we didn't seem ready for a scenario where our athletic quarterback went down. We just didn't have an answer. To build off of that idea, I was listening to some of the shows today, and one of the explanations is that in practice we really just run one station. It's a pro style offense, and Casey Thompson gets all the reps almost, and our backups barely get anything, which we know has been a problem in previous coaching regimes, not for us actually, but you see this where other schools. Other teams can have their quarterback go down, and their number 2 guy comes in and actually provides a jolt, and it happens against us, right? I mean, was it Illinois last year? Didn't we knock out Brandon Peters?
Yeah, and the dude from Rutgers, the transfer from Rutgers, comes in and did great against us. K-State didn't have Adrian Martinez last weekend and seemed to do okay against Oklahoma State. To a 40-0 victory. We talked with Coach Osborne earlier this year, and he talked glowingly about one of the things that made us a championship level culture was the stations and the backups and making sure that the second and the third team guys get reps. And again, that's 1990s talk, so I need to stop talking about that because Honky, I'm living in the past. But that just seems like good football, even today. It seems like good football to get backups reps. But part of the good football is I took my brother-in-law John with me to the game. And we're sitting there and we talked all pregame. We were tailgating and I was telling them the same things I was telling you guys the last couple of weeks about, watching some of the tells, pre-snap tells. And dude, I'm saying this is well before Casey ever got injured. We're watching the game and John's like, this is dumb. He's like, this is going to be a run. It's a run. This is going to be a pass. It's a pass. I mean, it's some of that is so frustrating to watch besides the fact, hopefully Casey's, healthy. I hate to see injuries for anybody but it also doesn't surprise me. And where did he get injured? He didn't get injured running the ball. Didn't get injured on the option.
No.
Got injured right in the pocket. And it's a long developing play in the pocket because it wasn't like some guy just bull rushed his way in. No, they had to do a stunt to get around to it. Everything's long developing pocket plays. That's just the way it is. And Illinois, they didn't allow Palmer just to get off and go the way that Purdue did. You didn't see him running free for 20 yards. And I thought Joseph did a great job explaining that today during the press conference, saying, literally he was kind of getting on Palmer saying, look, dude, they're not going to just let you go. You've got to fight your way through there. And do you think you're just going to get free, free exits off the line of scrimmage? No, they're going to, challenge you right up front. So you got to be physical and take them on there. And so, of course, so anyways, it's a frustrating level thing on a number of cases there, but it's never going to happen. So I don't even know why I say it, but I would love to see Smothers go out there and you just run some option, get outside the pocket, stretch a team horizontally a little bit. It's not going to happen. So I'm just saying it into the wind just to say it. It's out there into existence, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Has there been any proof of Whipple ever doing any Wildcat even? Is that even, it's not even possible, huh? It's crazy. It's also, I'd be curious if we could get a hold of some Pittsburgh Panther podcast and see if they have any sort of chart on an offensive lineman being so consistent on their tells, because that or the Bears, one of the two. It's either Pittsburgh or the Chicago Bears.
Did Did you try watching that at all, like during the game? Did you pay attention at all to that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but I mean, to your point, it was so obvious that it really kind of lost interest after a while because you're just like, well, I know exactly what's going to happen, so it's ruining the effect of watching the game. Right?
Yeah, and the crazy thing is the same thing that happened charting the the Purdue game. The same thing happened watching Illinois live, which was on the rare occasion when they would do something off key there. I mean, if he's in a 3-point stance and they threw it, if he was in a 2-point stance and they ran it, which I can't even remember if that happened, but the 3-point stance, there's a couple times we did little rollouts and play action and they work great. They actually do work great because they really trick you. I mean, the rare occasion where we're like, this is a run and they don't run, it was shocking. So maybe that's something that we can build off. I have no idea at this point.
It's hilarious. All right. Well, obviously the injury to Casey Thompson is going to impact potentially the rest of the season, but definitely this week on where we're at. It sounds like, Mickey Joseph has indicated that it's, actually day-to-day with Casey, but both Purdy and Smothers are getting reps in practice. Rob, I haven't listened closely to the press conference. Did you hear anything from Mickey today that gives us a better indication?
Well, his response to that was, well, obviously the backups basically, I mean, and so he just said the backups don't get the reps that they probably need.
That's because we run one station and everything goes to the
because so everything goes, and he's like, so obviously, Purdy wasn't getting those backups, and he was really he made a very specific distinction between Purdy and
Smothers.
And Smothers, and he was basically like, well, Smothers is an option quarterback. Purdy is more, fit for the system we want. He wasn't as prepared as we wanted him to be going into the game. I mean,
hey, Boomer.
You can tell I'm the Kool-Aid guy, and I'm really frustrated because there's absolutely no excuse for not having your second string guy ready to go. And he's like, well, basically he implied that he was doing like mental reps kind of thing, and should be ready. I know exactly.
I do mental reps from home. That's easy.
And it blew my mind, quite frankly, Dave, because I just don't understand it. There was all kinds of other things that we could get into if you want to get into it later, but it was. I've watched all of Mickey's press conferences, and this was probably the most frustrating with the answers that he gave me because it made me question a lot of things about the way the team is being run right now. So I don't know.
Sure. This is where, a stage of an interim coach where kind of any sort of kind of excitement over the change in the culture. It's been well over a month now where that's worn off, and now it's just you're playing football, and a lot of the other teams have a lot more culture and attitude established, and now we're just being revealed for what it is at this present moment. So it's hard to say. Boomer, I was going to ask a leading question, but I have the answer. Logan Smothers went 16 of 22 versus Iowa last year in his one start. 16 of 22. That's not bad.
Well, he's not a passer though, Dave. We know that. So, yeah, it can't be done. So yeah,
he's probably limited in his YOLO bombing, but maybe
that is a lot of our offense. So yeah, maybe there's a reason he's not.
It's a different scheme and everything that he completed those in. But even
go ahead, Honky.
Well, the presser today too. I mean, look, I think Mickey. There was a good question asked to him, I think, from Mitch Sherman, and it was more bigger picture. What would the offense be that you'd want to run if that? Not with the current personnel or even coaching staff, but just if you could just run what you wanted to run. Try to remember that Mickey took this over, in the middle of the season kind of thing, where he was like, yeah, we're in the Big Ten and I want to run the ball more. I mean, you could tell there was definitely an approach that I think he'd want to take. If for whatever reason, I don't think he feels like he can just take over the offense right now the way he did defensively a month ago with getting rid of Shenander and just bringing up Bush. I don't think Joseph feels comfortable at that point just to run what he wants to run. I don't even know how, feasible that is mid-season to make that change. But it was interesting because it was more big picture, basically saying, hey, if you are going to be in this position, what are you trying to do? And I think those are the questions that Trev's going to ask, when they get to that point.
Boomer, it does beg the question with Mickey's candidacy of being the head coach on how much he's let Mark Whipple just run his offense with almost really no checks to it, which Frost was trying to do actually in games 2 and 3, in the sense that, it doesn't seem like this offense is going to win any more games, at least easily anyway. And, I think having a few more wins underneath Mickey's belt would make a difference, and showing that he has, total control over the program. It's kind of curious that he hasn't put that foot down, because you think about Whipple. It's funny how, in the off season, you can spin it however you want to spin it, right? But one of the stories was Whipple, 40 years of coaching. This guy's forgotten more football than we've ever seen. But in reality, he's very stubborn in his ways, because he's been doing it for 40 years, and he doesn't actually really want to try anything different, even if it isn't going to work.
Yeah, that's kind of the weird thing about it. And Honky raised the point of how, Mickey was more than willing to make changes on defense, including firing coaches and things like that. And I get you probably don't want to wholesale fire every coordinator that you have, mid-season and expect it to turn out. I just wonder why he doesn't seem to push harder on that. Our commenter Abby said, commented the same thing. It doesn't seem like he's willing to overrule Whipple on what he does. And that is kind of a concern for me, because that has been a problem in these games. We can't establish a run, which we've all thought we need in the Big Ten. We're not scoring at the clip we need, especially with the defense that we've had. This last week they played okay, but still, you've got to score more points and move the ball and control clock more than we do. And for some reason, we just don't seem to be willing to do any of that. And I don't really understand why. I understand Whipple he's the coach that he is. And you know what you're getting with Whipple's offense, but you're still the boss, and you can tell him, okay, we want to try to control the ball more. I think I saw some stats like this last game. Another commented how tired we were throwing on first down. We pass in about, it's less than 50% of the time we run the ball on first down in Illinois. And, so we're almost always throwing on first down, which sometimes it works. And if it doesn't, you're already way behind on the sticks, and that's a problem. And I don't know. I don't have a good answer of why we just seem to be unwilling to make any sort of push or change on offense the way we did defensively speaking, at least staff-wise, and, telling them what to do. So,
Rob.
Well, so I just want to point out a fallacy that you kind of just stated, Boomer, and it is frustrating. And I know this doesn't sound anything like Redcast Rob, and that's okay, but
well, it goes with your shirt, apparently, Rob. So
apparently,
okay.
Yeah, it's a different me. I'm sorry, Jeremy.
Yeah,
Vegas chair. I'm sorry, man. I came from a work event. So we averaged almost 4 yards a carry against Illinois. We outrushed them on average yards per carry. So saying we can't establish a rush attack is false. We can establish a rush. We just aren't willing to do it. And it's
well, that's what I mean. We're not willing to do it.
Yeah,
why aren't
we're not
we?
willing to
that's
do it.
What I don't understand.
You're saying, I'm sorry, you just said can't, and that's kind of what
well, they throw to set up the run, right?
Right.
They
Yeah,
don't
but
do it the other way
and
around.
it's like at one point Grant was one of the top rushers in the nation, and then all of a sudden, the last 3 games, he's gone.
Yeah, that was my point, Rob, a couple of weeks ago when you brought up how good Grant was doing, and I don't disagree with you at that time, because he was like number 9 or something in the country. And my point wasn't that he's not a good runner. My point was we don't have a good run game, and anything he did up to that point was in spite of the fact that we didn't have a good run game. We had 24 runs and 24 passes last week, 48 plays. When you add that to the 53 plays that we had against Purdue, that adds up to 101 plays, the exact same number Purdue had against us in one game. That's not a recipe for success, just like run pass ratios. All those things I bring up are recipes for success. I'm actually going to highlight something my mom wrote here, and I think this is a good point. Shocking, Marty. But Mom, you did a great job here. The weather this weekend could definitely be different from any of the other games this year. Which team do you think will have it be affected the most? It will definitely be us. But I'm taking Dad to the game. And to Mom's point there, it could be wet. It could be windy. It could actually start to be Big Ten conditions, which is something we haven't dealt with up to this point. All the more reason that you need to be developing a run game. And I mentioned this way back in the non-conference game era. Even when we were throwing the ball well, you've got to be developing a run game early in the season because now's not the time to do it. It's late now to try to develop something. And then heaven forbid you do get an injury to the quarterback. That's a problem. So, it's rough. I look with Mickey here. He's doing everything he can. I'm not going to try to put anything on him taking over a team halfway through. And he's made a lot of really good moves that have, he's brought the team. He said the team is ready to go this week, that they've promised him that he kind of challenged them. Are you guys going to be able to come back and are you going to be ready to play this week? And they said they would. And I mean, that's right now. I think that's kind of where we're at, because when you're 3-5 going into November, are you done or do you got some fight left in you? These 4 teams that you're going to play against are going to be physical teams that aren't going to take anything off. And so, you're going to look really embarrassed if you go out there and for lack of a better word, half-ass it. I mean, you've got to be ready to go physically, mentally, everything, mental reps, physical reps. You're going to need physical reps this week too. I promise you, you need physical reps to match the mental ones. But
a couple years ago, we kind of half-assed it versus Minnesota when they had all the COVID issues, and they came in here and stomped us. It's interesting. Weather-wise, I was just looking at it's chance of rain, obviously. 9.8 miles per hour is the estimated wind, so about 10 miles per hour. It tends to be that wind is more important of a factor on games than rain when it comes to throwing the ball, right? So if it's windy conditions and wet, then you got an issue. That could qualify. So we'll see. It depends if it's gusting or not. Interesting. I was listening to, I think, Sipple show today, and he brought up a really interesting stat. I had no idea. In fact, I even watched the game, and I just didn't realize it was those many yards were piling up. Ole Miss versus Texas A&M. Lane Kiffin in that running Rebel offense. Guess how many carries they had in that game versus A&M, which they won on the road 31-28.
I would guess somewhere in the 40s to 50.
60, over 60 carries.
60.
They had like 80 plays, only 20 passes, and 60-some runs. They are the number 3 rush offense in the country right now.
Wow.
Lane Kiffin, who's supposed to be, hey, loosey-goosey, wild west,
coach
throwing the ball over.
Well, hey,
he is born in Lincoln.
Speaking of next coach here, Dave, I mean, this is we're not going to do a lot of tweets of the week, but this was one I thought could get us into a good conversation. And this is from Mike Schneider, Redcaster out there, follows us on Twitter. And he says there's absolutely zero chance that Mickey Joseph would be recruiting this hard if he wasn't coming back on the Nebraska coaching staff next year. I'm not completely convinced that he'll be the head coach, but he'll be back. And to his point about how hard we're recruiting, here's a couple of tweets from the last week. One of them a week ago, Dayton Raiola. This should be a familiar name to Husker fans. Dalton's younger brother. What a blessing it is after a great conversation with Coach Mickey Joseph and his uncle Donovan. I'm humbled to receive my first offer from Husker Football Nation. So something that was kind of flew in the face of the issues with recruiting Dylan a year ago and some of the problems that we had, maybe not going after him as hard. The fact that we were the first ones to go after him. And that is one thing too. I want to say Mickey today, you can sense he's starting to distance the program from Frost. He's slowly kind of doing it, and he's not saying it in just one thing, but he's maybe the way we're recruiting and the way we're doing, the way we're practicing, how the more physical practices, tackling, things like that. He's starting to kind of distance the program under him from Frost. The other one here is today from Arnold Barnes III, done deal. We've got a running back from New Orleans. So here is the recruiting class up to this point. Now we're up to, I believe it's 17 commits, I think it is. No, 15 commits, I think. And just the last week, we got Malachi Coleman, of course, from Lincoln, and then Arnold Barnes, the running back from New Orleans, Louisiana. So to Mike Schneider's point there, the fact that, Mickey is recruiting as hard as ever. We're having some success on the recruiting trail here. I don't know what Mickey's future is going to be, but I would agree with Mike there that it is really hard. I really struggle to see the program not having Mickey involved in some way. And I will say this, and then I'll let you guys talk. We've seen enough over the last decade or so, whether it was the Pelini staff to Riley or the Riley staff to Frost and so on. We've seen enough of complete overhauls where everything changes, and it doesn't always fix things, and you're starting over from scratch. We saw it this last offseason on the offense. We've completely flipped the offense completely from scratch, And I don't know that it's any better right now than where it was a year ago. I think we've fallen backwards in some ways. And I like the idea, at the very least, no matter what, with whatever changes are going to come after this season, to have some continuity from right now. And if I was picking continuity, some guys to have continuity with, Mickey would absolutely be at the top of it. Bill Bush in some capacity. There's some guys. There's Applewhite. There's some guys that I think I would be on the top of my list of maintaining some of that consistency from this year to next. And then you're going to bring in guys that are going to make enough changes anyways. But there's no reason we don't need to completely pull everything out from underneath again and start 100% over either.
Sure, Rob.
Yeah. Well, Matt, you and I had sorry, Honky, Matt, whatever. You and I had like an interesting text kind of just between the two of us going back and forth this weekend too. And I think it kind of hit on that point too. And what I said to you too is that I don't know if I'm convinced that he's going to be the next head coach just yet too, but I know that he does understand the kind of culture that we need to establish, right? He kind of hit on that too with the running game. And I was just saying like he's not wasting any time right now, like trying to instill that culture into these kids. He's still out there. He's recruiting, and that it's not going to surprise me at all. And we've said this multiple times. If he is still involved with this program next year in some capacity, whether it's an assistant coach, head of recruiting, an assistant coach who is the head of recruiting, there's a multiple things there, but it just feels like in so many different ways that he is going to be here next year, and that he is going to be part of the package, it
seems quite logical and very possible. Now, some coaches may not accept that, and that may limit our pool if Trev requires that. I don't think that's a requirement per se. To Honky's point and Rob's point, any good coach would look at Mickey's recruiting acumen and say, hey, maybe that guy, considering his ties in Nebraska and this existing recruiting class, is worth keeping on at least for at minimum 1 year, if not more. But there's also coaches that may have their own recruiting coordinator, their own wide receivers coach. And for Mickey to be an effective recruiter, he has to be an actual assistant coach, because he needs to be able to go out and recruit. And you can't do that from a coordinator position. So, there's a lot at play there, and there's a lot of coaches that have connections to Mickey. So that may play out just as we would expect.
Well, I've heard a number of people say this, and Dave, you've been right. The lead of it is that you have to take the emotion out of it. And it's important to me, as I'm even suggesting that, is that it can't come from a place of emotion. It has to come from a place of, this is from a logical standpoint. In fact, from a logical standpoint, flipping everything and starting completely over from scratch doesn't make sense. In fact, that goes back to Frost wanting to bring his entire staff here.
Yep. And
allowing that is, you look back on it and it doesn't look real smart. In fact, that was an argument I remember back in 2008 when Osborne was the athletic director. I think, gosh, I could be wrong. I think it was Grobe from Wake Forest. He was rumored to want to come here, but he wanted to bring his entire staff. And that was not something that, apparently Osborne would have thought would have been the wise move to do. As we all know, looking back on it, Watson was retained, the offensive coordinator. Gilmore, the receivers coach, and the recruiting coordinator, they were both retained, which helped Pelini come in, focus on the defense, which is what was a major concern at the time. Had the offense kind of get taken care of by a couple of guys that had been around, and that helped with some of the transition. And I think that's the big thing, is that whatever, there's going to be a transition. There's no doubt about that. We know there's some transition, even if Mickey becomes the head coach. And I'm not taking him out of the running for that either right now. But there's going to be a transition after this offseason, no matter what. So how big or how small of one does there need to be? I would say offensively, we need to make a transition again, from where we've gone this year. And I'll tell you what, this is a perfect time for me just defensively. I want to see the 4-3 back. I'm tired of this 3-4 garbage. We've been doing it back and forth in some flavor or variation or another, or call guys edge or this or that since Diaco. Done with it. Get back to a 4-3. It's what we've done best. It's what we can recruit best in this area. We can always find guys that can fit that kind of mold, but those big D linemen that you need to run 3-man fronts and all that, I haven't seen it be run well enough to ever suggest to me that that's the route that we should keep going. I'd want to see a 4-3. That would be something. I guess that would be a question Mitch Sherman should ask Mickey next week. Defensively, what would you want to see if you're going to be here long term? I'd like to get his thoughts on that.
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious there, Honky. You said you don't want to see like a complete overhaul of the team, but you want to switch defensive schemes and completely rebuild the offense. I mean, that kind of is a complete overhaul, isn't it? I mean,
well,
special teams maybe will keep, but
recruiting is one part of overhauls, and so if you lose all these guys that we just showed here, which Mickey, and for the people listening to the show, I'm bringing up the recruiting class again. There's one thing that Mickey's done an unbelievable job of, taking over 3 games in the season. I mean, to maintain that entire class of in-state kids, we have built a number of relationships over the last year. When we had Damon Benning on back in April, he talked about how this staff had gone into Omaha time and again already. And what's funny is I don't think he was really talking about Frost as much as he was talking about Bush and Joseph and how those guys, they went to Omaha Northwest. He goes, they went to Bellevue East. He goes, name the last time a coaching staff went to Bellevue East. That's part of the overhaul too. You go and get rid of all those guys. You get rid of Bush and Joseph that have built a lot of those connections just in the last year alone. And now you're rebuilding and overhauling all of that as we bring in some coaching staff that don't have those in-state connections. And if you don't have Bush and Joseph there, you don't have those guys to help make those connections. Let's be smart about this here too, is that you've got to be able to limit how, the disruption, that a very disruptive thing that's going to take place no matter what, you got to limit how much disruption it does. And there are good things going on in the program. So you got to highlight those things. Right now, that would be recruiting, I think. Getting Malachi Coleman last week, that's a highlight. Those are good moments, and those are good things happening right now. You got to find ways not to have that stuff blow up just because you're trying to make some changes. Now, in the process, the X's and O's, hell yeah. I mean, I'm blow up the X's and O's, blow up everything about our offensive X's and O's you want to right now. I would be ecstatic with that, but that will come in time.
I wouldn't care if we went with Air Force's. Oh, Boomers, you're muted.
Boomer, you're on mute.
Oh, I was going to say, do you worry how that would work with potential recruits where, we were running a particular type of offense or defense and now we're completely blowing it up? Does that risk losing some of those recruits that we have already? I mean, granted, we don't know how that's being pitched.
Can you bring up your the list of recruits, Honky, really quick?
Yeah.
Is there anybody on the D line, for example, that might be being recruited to fit into a 3-4 that then would suddenly be an odd fit here?
No, I mean, as an example, Maverick Noonan's 6'4", 227 edge. He'd be a D end. I mean, he'd be a 4-3 D end.
Bam Popple looks like. Yeah.
No, the thing is, these guys can fit into a lot of spots. In fact, Malachi Coleman's a good example of that. He's listed as an athlete. He might be your 6'5" wide receiver. He might be your 6'5" outside linebacker pass rushing guy. I mean, we don't know yet what he'll develop into.
In reality, the 3-4, the unique position is that nose tackle, which is the hardest position to recruit.
Yeah.
But the key to the entire defense, and that's why some of the SEC guys can run, is because they have these athletic big guys that can do that. And it's curious how Wisconsin's made this work, because they've had an effective 3-4 for years, and I don't see why they can be able to pull it off and not us. But to your point, Honky, it just hasn't really worked at all. And unless there's a different way to deploy it, I wouldn't oppose going back to a 4-3.
And Wisconsin's run it, without getting that big 5-star guy, right? I mean, typically speaking, they have done it with it's a workman. They bring their lunch pail to practice kind of mentality. A lot of the same things that Iowa has done over the years too. They've brought a lot of 2- and 3-star guys up, and they just develop the hell out of them. That's something that Mickey talked about today too, is the development side. And he, again, was distancing the program that he wants to run moving forward away from the Frost era, which was, where's the development been, essentially? And, he kind of had a little bit of an opportunity, 3 games worth and 1 off-season worth. He got to kind of see what it was like to be on the inside with the Frost era. And you can tell that, he's jumping at the chance here. He wants to really get, put his foot down and be able to start to implement things the way he wants to run them. He's limited in how much you can do in season with that. So if you think about him changing a couple of the coaches, including the D coordinator already, he's changed up a lot of the practice stuff. I mean, he's done a great amount of change in a small amount of time. So I'm trying to give some grace there where it's like, I mean, I want to pull my hair out with our offense, and you guys know that. I wanted to do it the last month or so, and I've tried to, I've reined it back a little bit. I show a little video and say, hey, maybe we could do this, and we don't do it. and I'm pulling my hair out. But I've got to just bite my tongue, get through the season offensively. It's not going to get, for me personally, it's not going to get any better. We're not going to see the style I want to see between now and the end of the year. So, but that doesn't mean that we can't get there after the season.
So, yeah, maybe to wrap up the Mickey Joseph conversation in recruiting and all that type of stuff, in the sense of like, to the basic question of like, well, Mickey wouldn't be recruiting this hard if he wasn't going to come back in some capacity, right? I mean, I understand that's very logical. I wouldn't guarantee it in the sense that, I mean, it's different in the sense that Mickey and Bill Bush are Nebraska guys, and they want to see the program succeed. I mean, you know, I've heard some of the national, shows, and they're like, yeah, all the Nebraska coaches are probably busy just sharpening their resumes and, are out job searching. And I'm like, I don't think that's the case. And it's because half the coaching staff has a Nebraska tie to them, right? And so I just don't think that's the way Mickey thinks about it at all. So even if he was like, I don't know where I'm going to be next year, he's still going to do his very best for his alumni. I just think that's the way it works, right?
What's interesting to me is how effective it's been. I mean, it's one thing to
that's probably the bigger surprise.
Yeah, it's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to keep working hard, but he's actually getting new recruits. Like the guy today, the running back. I mean, I haven't been paying that close attention, so maybe recruitniks out there have heard about this guy for weeks. I hadn't. It was just kind of out of the blue. Barnes commits, but Malachi. I mean, Malachi didn't have to commit a week ago. He had to have some, some reassuring feeling that what he definitely wants Mickey to be around.
Well, he said he was going to be.
And so he has to have some kind of reassuring, feel towards it to make that commitment. And so I don't know. I mean, it would seem odd to me. And this goes all the way back to that original tweet there from Mike, is that it just feels odd to me to not see him back. And it is the recruiting part, but boy, the other thing is Trev Gate has given Mickey a heck of a platform for 9 weeks to get out in front and really say what he wants to do. And so now, you started seeing it on social media today that, and I'm sure this is agents getting involved, but Mickey's, been now rumored with Arizona State, reaching out for him. You're going to hear a lot more about that all month. I mean, November is just turned on the calendar, and there will be other teams, whether it's Power 5 or Group of Fives. That's not going to be the first one. So expect to hear more. But we haven't even gotten to the craziness of coaching carousels yet. And that's how long the season's been. We've been without a head coach, a full-time non-interim head coach for a month and a half, and we haven't really even gotten into the coaching carousel.
Yeah. Auburn has joined that carousel, firing Brian Hurston yesterday. So, yeah.
Good point.
All right, we can go anywhere we want here, guys. We got options, so I'll throw them out. You guys can.
Can I make one more point on the?
No, Rob.
Sorry.
Yes,
sorry,
go
Dave,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I was going to say. I started thinking back because Honky's sitting here talking about like Mickey being around and the Nebraska ties and everything. And Honky, that weekend that I was out there for the spring game, I keep thinking back to that. And who's the one guy that you and I saw multiple times that weekend from the coaching staff?
Oh, geez. Yeah, it was Mickey.
Yeah. And it's weird because like of all the people like that we ran into that weekend that like, whether they were former players, coaches, people that work for Nebraska, friends, family, cousins, sisters of mothers of cousins of daughters. Like, I mean, the one guy that we saw most consistently that entire weekend was Mickey. It was like he was everywhere.
You're right, Rob. Like it was Tyler Kai was giving us the tour. And just on the tour, there's Mickey. And who's Mickey with? He's with a whole group of guys. A couple of them are former Huskers like Reggie Cooper. And there might have been a couple more. But
one of them was a kid from Nebraska.
No. It was Louisiana guys.
Oh, Louisiana.
It was a whole group of Louisiana guys, coaches, dads, a kid. There was a recruit. But it was just that it was Mickey was taking guys around, and then we'd see him at another event, and then we saw him Saturday night afterwards at the former players like alumni event that we shouldn't have been at.
He's not going anywhere. There's my prediction. He's not going anywhere. He's staying.
I mean, we all want that. I'm just saying that I'm just trying to take the emotion out of it.
You're right,
it's
Dave,
logical that I mean. If it comes down to push to shove and Trev finds his guy and he's like, I really want this guy to be the head coach. And the guy's like, look, I have my own recruiting coordinator and wide receiver coach. I don't know if I have a spot for Mickey. I love the guy, but I just don't even know him. I've never met him. I have no idea who this guy is. And I have my guy. And they're like, yeah. And then Trev's like, okay, well, we can't hire you then. I'd be a little surprised.
Or
if
it
Trev did that.
narrows down the coaching search to like 2 or 3 guys that we know for a fact will work with Mickey.
It depends how important the taking the emotion out. It depends on how important and how logical it is to Trev that they remain.
And I agree, it's logical to keep them. But there's always a point. Right?
That's the thing. I think
sometimes you're the good contrarian, and that's fine. Like,
I think it's logical.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to make that case. Obviously, that's logical. But the flip side of it is, if somebody wants to come in here and wants to bring in his own staff and he makes changes, that's fine too. But then that person has to be able to understand that you're walking into a situation where you better be able to explain that, and Trev better be able to explain that. Because you're going to now have there's a lot of fans still that would say, hey, Mickey shouldn't be the head coach. He doesn't have the experience, blah, blah, blah. There's plenty of fans out there that will say that. But you're going to find less and less fans as this goes longer saying, no, he should be just completely gone. It doesn't. More people are saying it doesn't make sense to not have him be around.
100%.
Okay,
Let's
sorry,
take
I didn't mean to
look.
extend that out further. So
no, it's all right. It's a very loose. I think I now have a game plan. Let's bring up this chart from last week where we looked at how there was going to be a 7-way tie for the Big Ten West with Northwestern winning, and that's not going to happen because we have failed to do our part to take down Illinois in that first week of games.
You can blame Rutgers too, Dave. So.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Rutgers ruined it there. What? Rutgers? Didn't Rutgers lose to Minnesota?
Well, they were supposed to beat Minnesota for that to happen. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what the red is for.
Oh, the red. Yeah, it's hard. I got a little confused on that.
Yeah. No, that's okay because it took me like 2 days to figure that chart out, Dave. So you're fine.
So basically, Northwestern can no longer officially. Northwestern is out of the Big Ten West.
Right. Well,
title.
Well, anyway, I think it looks like Illinois' division to win. They have Purdue here in a couple weeks, but they should be in relatively good shape, even if they probably take a loss at some point. But besides that, let's talk about what the next coach at Nebraska will be facing. And our graphics guy Swobes came up with a nice little non-con games graphic here. We did have the schedules officially announced. Geez, it's already been over a week now, right, guys?
Yeah.
And we have a look forward to the 2023 season. Obviously, Nebraska's new head coach, whoever that will be, actually starts with a conference game. We have Minnesota on a Thursday night. And then we have a road game in Boulder, Colorado on September 9th, Northern Illinois at home on the 16th, and Louisiana Tech. Troy Edwards, a ghost, comes to town on September 23rd.
4-0 to start the season, baby.
Well, if we can figure out how to beat Minnesota, there's a decent shot because Colorado would also be replacing a coach and is probably further down
in a row that we beat Minnesota, Dave. So
all right, I like the attitude, Rob. I like it. There's the red cast. That shirt is starting to tint red a little bit. It's changing from white to pink.
Let me fix this a little bit. Hold on, give me a second.
Well, as Rob gets some red on there. Boomer, is there any one schedule out here that catches your eye as an attractive slate for these Big Ten schools?
Well, just for interest, or what the hell is Purdue doing? Who put that schedule together for?
Yeah, they joined the ACC West,
guys.
Yeah,
Fresno, then Advat Tech, and Syracuse. I mean, maybe we're bringing the ACC on board to some other.
They're going to try to win 2 division titles next year.
Yeah, that's pretty vicious. That's probably the toughest slate, really, when you look at the non-con games out of anyone in the conference.
I've been saving that joke since last week, by the way. I just wanted
that's good. Well,
Iowa plays Utah State at Iowa State and Western Michigan, which is the most Iowa schedule that Iowa could possibly have. You got to have a Western, Central, Eastern Michigan.
Is there not a community college or somewhere in Iowa they could play?
Yeah, if they had Northern Iowa replacing Utah
Jeffrey
State,
the Greek is going to text one of us here probably, or like message one of us tomorrow for talking about Iowa too much. So we should probably not.
So
and Michigan is really challenging themselves with Eastern Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green again. That's as we saw in the playoff rankings today, that non-con schedule is kind of being used against them to keep them a little lower than maybe they. But
Illinois is in the top 12, I think, and their schedule has been an advantage.
And they are going to the dangerous confines of Lawrence, Kansas next year. Holy cow.
Well, Northwestern
Kansas
is
may have a
playing
new coach then, Dave. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, Northwestern's playing UTEP, Duke, and Howard, so they'll start the season 0-3. So that's
they've been playing Duke a lot. They must have like this long.
Really have.
Well, it's basically what they're doing is they're trying to get transfers for their master's programs, to cross. There must be some kind of like grant or something that they're offering or something like that. So
Rutgers also Wisconsin and Georgia Southern when they match up. I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a classic.
Yeah, it's pretty weak slate for non-con.
Georgia Southern, who couldn't just beat Georgia Southern though? I mean, that's an easy win.
Well, think about Nebraska though. I mean, to go to what most of the audience probably cares about is ours, and to start the season with 2 road games, and that's only the second time in the modern era. 76 was the other time, and then 95. I remember the 95 season. That was our freshman year in college, and it started at Oklahoma State on a Thursday night, and then the second game was against Michigan State, coached by Nick Saban, his first game there. 76 of all things, I actually have the glasses, like the commemorative glasses in the curio cabinet. Thanks, Mom. And that was, we played Indiana on the road, and I think that was a Lee Corso team.
Yeah.
And then I want to say it was LSU when we started the season, those two. But no joke here this year. I mean, at Minnesota and then at Colorado, where new coach or not, we experienced that a couple years ago. Right. Be on the road twice against 2 Power 5 teams. And then of all things, I don't know if this is just horrible memories, but to have Northern Illinois come here, we've had a problem with them in the past. And then even La Tech and their 8,000 yards that they threw against us in Solch's first game, just a weird slate. But I don't know.
It's a revenge slate is what it is.
Boomer.
We are going 4-0 to start the year next year. End of story. Podcast over.
Okay, Dave, please move us on, Dave.
Well, Boomer, I just wanted to throw out, could the September 16th matchup versus Northern Illinois be a Dave Doran Bowl? There's been a little more buzz about the NC State coach, who formerly was the Northern Illinois coach, being a candidate.
Well, that is true, and plus we've also heard the possibility of PJ Fleck maybe coaching against his old team here in week 1.
There you go.
That's been bouncing around the interwebs, but now it'll be interesting. I mean, this is probably the last hurrah of divisions in the Big Ten. No idea how they're going to organize everything come 2024. Do they have a plan when they're going to announce that, or I guess are they waiting to see who else they can poach from the Pac-12 before they come up with any?
I don't think Boomer. I don't think they're done. I don't think they're done
either.
Bringing new teams in before they want to make that announcement for 2024.
I don't think. I think you're correct, Donkey. I think they're seeing if there's anything else they want to do first, and then they'll make a decision. But so this is probably your last hurrah divisions, and I guess we'll just take it by ear. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of bringing more teams in, I did see that Big 12 is either finalizing or have finalized a TV contract that stabilizes them a little bit. So we'll see where that Pac-12 goes. I don't know. It's hard to say right now. All right, guys. Anything else we want to cover? Anything we want to talk about looking forward versus Minnesota before we let Honky give a parting shot?
I don't know. In Minnesota, they're basically like – it's basically like if you ask your mom, hey, Mom, I want Illinois, and she says, no, we have Illinois at home. That's what Minnesota is. I mean, they're Illinois light. So expect a lot of the same. They don't. I've watched them a few times this year because I'm always intrigued by the Gophers, and they're not a downfield passing team. They like to go to the tight end a lot. They don't have a deep threat really since Ottman Bell went down, and they play good defense, and they like to run the ball. Even when they don't win, they're running the ball out. If we can get up early on the Gophers, they're not a catch-up team, so that's the key. It's kind of like with Illinois. You want to score early if you can and make them chase you. And if you can do that with Minnesota, you can beat them. If you can't, then you're playing into the game they want to play. So,
quick predictions before Honky does his parting shot from all three of you. Who's the starting quarterback for Nebraska on Saturday? Honky?
Purdy.
Boomer?
I'm going to say Smothers just to mix it up a little.
Oh, I would love it. I don't even want to go there.
Rob?
You know what? Ask me again on Saturday morning when the weather is what it is. I'm kidding. No, I'm going to say Smothers because I think the weather is going to be option football weather.
Yeah. See, Dave, if you ask me who I would start because we're going to run option all day, I'd be Smothers, but it's going to be Purdy.
I'm going to guess Thompson comes out of the tunnel.
Oh, I guess I didn't even
You know what?
consider that as the
he
option.
said
That's
that he said
interesting.
that today. He kind of hinted that Thompson might be ready to play on Saturday, and I wouldn't be surprised if they threw him out there because it'd be the most Nebraska thing ever to throw an injured quarterback out on the field to continue to throw the ball in a pocket that's collapsing. So
No, we've never done that around here. Who are you kidding?
No, not at all. We wouldn't have anybody play with.
And for the
wired
record,
shut.
I'm quoting Honky on that with the most Nebraska thing ever. So I got to throw him under the bus a little bit.
That's right. All right, Honk. Time for your parting shot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend's game. 11 a.m. kickoff. My dad's going to be down for it, so we're going to we'll do some tailgating, whatever it is. I was even getting one of my favorite followers that we have that is not a Nebraska guy is Boatwagon on Twitter, and he's a Minnesota guy, and he just kind of texted me or DM'd me out of the blue today, and he said, "Hey, he's flying down," and it was just like, that's cool. Like, I have no idea if I'll have a chance to run into him or not, but it's cool the connections that we've been able to make through the show and through social media, and we joked earlier, Rob, you joked earlier about Jeffrey the Greek, but making connections with guys like that, the Iowa fans and just other fans from around, that's been a lot of fun. And so, with the games, even if they don't go the way that we want to go, they are still opportunities to go and see people and meet people in person, and it's one more chance to root for the team. So as frustrating as I know the season has been for everyone, Redcasters, there's still 4 more games, and there are opportunities to go and watch Nebraska play football, because the second the season is over, it always becomes the longest off season, and football isn't there. And at least, as I said in my hot take, at least we'll be able to fall back on basketball, but that's not always been a lot of fun either. But
hey, we're a women's sports school anyway. Do you see soccer made it, for the record, soccer made it to the semifinals for the first time since 2018.
Yeah,
Big
without
win.
a doubt. I mean, this is
good job, women. That is an awesome accomplishment. We hope you take it all in the Big Ten. Good
yep,
job.
and we're gonna get Wisconsin when they come back to play in the Devaney. So go volleyball. Have fun in the Betcast, fellas.
The Betcast Picks of the Week.
All right, guys, back to the Betcast.
How did this week go, Dave?
I'll take the loss because I'm 6-4 on the year, and I don't think anybody else can say that. So, it was a rough one. I regret that bet. Soon after I texted Swopes and said, "Hey, that's my pick." I still see it as I just cannot believe Wake Forest was only a 3.5 or 4 point favorite versus a pretty average Louisville team, but that number just stunk. There was something going on there because all the sharps were on Louisville. I listened to a bunch of podcasts on Friday, and a bunch of people in the know are like, "Yeah, take Louisville." So I regret that. It was my first winning week in 2 or 3 weeks, so I had really good straight up record. I think I went 6-4 with a hit a round robin that gave me a little extra, so I did fine this week, but my best bet did not come through. You guys, though, good job bouncing back finally. Skip finally gets a win there. Tennessee, easy on the 11.5.
Is that his first win all season?
No, he had one. He had at least one other. Boomer takes an easy one there, Oklahoma. Matt Campbell is struggling there at Iowa State. I looked at this one, and I was going to bet it with you, Boomer, but boy, I was like, man,
they were handing us money with that one, Dave. I mean, Iowa State's they're on a schneid this year, and I don't think they're pulling out of it. So they're close in games, but 1.5 points. That's basically a toss up. So
I think it is at the point of the year where like Tennessee, for example, looking at that score 44-6, it's going to be really interesting this week versus Georgia. But it feels like betting lines usually take a while to catch up to something like a Tennessee offense that's just performing so much better than any metrics would tell you. And that was the case again. But also a horrible game of mismanagement. I mean, from Kentucky's side, I mean, classic honky rant there where they should be able to get out at half at 20-6, and they just totally mismanage the plays and the clock, and lets Tennessee get up 27-6. And it was just downhill from there. And then the TCU one, Rob, that was a toss-up all the way. It was a great game to watch, actually. Hit the over on that one.
I tried really hard to like get that game at plus 7.5 because I mistexted Dan when we originally did it, but apparently it still worked out for the actual.
Yeah, that's a lot of points to buy down, Rob.
7.5. Yeah.
I mean, you would have won it. I mean,
well, and for
work.
those betcasters out there that aren't familiar with buying down a bet, there are ways on some of these apps where you can go down and actually buy your point spread. You just get less money back for doing it.
Alternative spread. Yep.
There you
That's
go.
right.
Yeah. No, that either way as you said, Dave, that's a great bet either way. And whether it was minus 7.5 or plus 7.5. And I was worried there for like the first 2 quarters, and then TCU ended up pulling away.
TCU is a second half team this year. So
yeah, they really
are. I mean, that game was 3 points with just I don't know, 5 minutes ago or so. I mean, it was down there.
It was close. It was close.
Yeah, it was a really good game to watch. All right, guys, what is on your board? I'm sure I can start with the marquee matchup, which is newly minted #1 Tennessee, a 8-point dog. Am I looking at this right, Boomer? Versus the Bulldogs of Georgia. Of course, it is in Athens, in between the hedges, and that ranking is the brand new college football playoff rankings. But a #1 team in the land, 8-point dogs. What do you think?
Yeah, people have put a lot of stock on the Georgia defense and just the fact they were #1 last year. I mean, Georgia had been kind of sleepwalking through some games early this year. I mean, like they struggled with Kent State, who I was watching, play tonight. And I guess Vegas doesn't have a ton of faith yet in Tennessee to be able to pull this off all season. I don't know how I would bet this right now. 8 seems like a lot, but.
So I would say,
yeah, I would think it'd be under a touchdown, but man, I might wait on that one. I don't know, but yeah.
No, well, see, if you wait, if you want Tennessee, you want to get them now because
you may be
to
right.
your point, that number could, because a lot of people are going to think that same way. Finally, I think people are going to start thinking, hey, that number is going to move down to 6.5, and boy, I don't know. I mean, you want the touchdown, right? So
I'm trying to go apples for apples here on this one. And I guess my biggest problem is like who has Georgia played this year with an offense, a high pass offense that is similar to what Tennessee has played, right? And I keep thinking back to like the Oregon game, and I'm like, oh man, like obviously both teams were pretty deep into the season now, but I just feel like at Georgia's defense, Tennessee really relies heavily on passing, but Georgia's corners are some of the best in the country. They're probably going to be mostly NFL guys, including their safeties. I mean, -8 actually seems like a good buy for Georgia.
If you're going for Georgia, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I see Georgia as being at least like a 2-score win on this. I just do, and I think we'll probably see.
You've not bought into Tennessee, to your point, Ron.
I mean, I watched them against Alabama, but Alabama has looked. I mean, from Alabama,
it doesn't have NFL cornerbacks.
Well, they sure didn't look like it against Tennessee. I'll tell you that.
They'll probably be playing in the NFL though.
Yeah, they will be, but and they'll probably end up on the Raiders. But I mean,
well, they're going to run a 4-3, and
yeah. But I mean, but my point being is that Georgia looks like, I mean, if you had to take a college team and say like, oh, this team could play against like the worst NFL team out there, probably the Raiders, Georgia would be that team. They look that good on defense. And they're like,
I hear you.
So that's just my feeling. And I'm allowed to be the contrarian.
I think I would probably take Georgia to win the game, but I would likely take Tennessee to cover the 8 right now. Okay. Just because I think that, I mean, like, I guess, I bet against Tennessee last week. I lost against Skip. I went head-to-head against them. I took Kentucky plus 13. I'm like, that's a big number, and I just don't think they're going to.
Done that. That's Kentucky.
Yeah, Rob, thanks. I think your gut wouldn't have let you done that. But I guess my point there is, as I admit my failure, is that I don't think I'm going to do it again, right? I'm like, I just don't. I'm not. If I think that Georgia's going to win this game, I'm probably just going to not bet it, right? I mean, like. It's just not worth it to me because Tennessee's burned me too many times at this point. They burned me against Alabama, burned me last week. They keep on winning and winning bigger than I expect. So maybe they lose this game, but I mean, I'm not going to tell you that they're not going to cover the 8 points. So that's my take.
That's fair.
All right, guys, what's on your board? Ohio State, Northwestern.
I mean, a lot. I'm scared of some of the Big Ten matchups. To be honest with you, they freak me out a little bit. But
there's some big point spreads in some of those. That
yeah,
I don't know. Are they going to take a day off? Because I think like Michigan's 25.5 against Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers isn't going to score more than 14, but
up to
what is Michigan going to do? It kind of depends what they want to do in the second half, because they'll be saving themselves for the game against us in 2 weeks. But yeah, in the Big Ten, I guess the games I was looking at, Penn State and Indiana. I think Penn State can get them at 13.5. I think Indiana's going to throw in the towel for the season. I mean, they haven't amounted a whole lot of anything, and I don't know what they're playing for at this point. Penn State's still got a halfway decent season ahead of them. I could see them winning that by 2 touchdowns pretty easily.
The mighty KU, how they've fallen. They're now like a 2-point dog to Oklahoma State this weekend. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised to see them lose that game also.
Boy, did you watch Oklahoma State last week? What happened?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
49-0?
Yeah, that was awful. I have no idea how to read that, what that means for Oklahoma State.
It's crazy.
No idea. Yeah.
The game that interests me a lot right now is Kentucky's actually a 2-point favorite over Missouri, and that seems almost like, I don't know. I just feel, and it's at Missouri. I get that, and it's an SEC game, but I still feel like Kentucky's going to pull that one off by at least a field goal, which would give you the win, right?
I think it just depends. I mean, Missouri played Georgia close. They had them in the fourth quarter.
They did.
Had a shot of winning that game, and I think it just kind of depends how does Kentucky have a hangover coming off that drubbing they took by Tennessee. They might waltz into Missouri kind of sleeping and get skunked there. So
that's a
possibility.
I mean,
I guess the other 2 Big Ten games I'd be looking at just from the size of the point spread, they're about 16 points each. Illinois and Michigan State. Spartans aren't good, but 16 is a lot of points there. And
especially in Big Ten, especially if the weather is going to be like it is in the Midwest this weekend. Like, that's a big one right there. Like,
and I'm not sure I trust Minnesota to score that many points. Even if you think the Gophers are going to somehow win this weekend, that's a lot of points. I mean, geez. So.
The other one too, Syracuse, 6-2, number 20 in the country. They're a 3.5 point dog to Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah, came preseason was ranked, and I mean that's a good matchup. I think Syracuse could have easily lost by a lot more to Clemson 2 weeks ago. They lost last week.
Brett McMurphy thought Nebraska should be ranked preseason too, Dave. So I mean,
I'm just saying I think Pittsburgh probably is. I mean, that's a pretty even matchup, actually. My take.
And then, speaking of Clemson, Dave, they're only about a 3.5 to 4 point favorite on Notre Dame. I mean, we're talking undefeated playoff ranked Clemson
game in South
Notre
Bend.
Dame. I mean, what's your feel on that one? That's what I've been eyeballing.
I don't know. I mean, Notre Dame.
They're hard to read Notre Dame this year.
I mean, Rob, you said they look like trash, and they took care of Syracuse, a team that you were just saying should be able to beat Pittsburgh.
You're right.
Quite handily. It was not that close of a game. And I think they looked better. And we'll see. I mean, there's a couple of other good ranked games out here. You have Texas.
They obviously listened to the podcast. That's what it is, Dave. And they got obvious. I gave them bulletin board material.
Texas
I won't say anything about them this week.
2.5 point favorite on the road versus K-State. We don't know if Baby Martinez will be healthy or not. I'm going to say that number tells me that he's still not healthy, and it's probably Howard starting.
Didn't seem to slow him down last week, though. So.
No. And then Alabama in Death Valley taking on LSU is 13.5 point favorites, almost 2 touchdowns. LSU has turned their season around at 6-2 in the year.
Yeah, they're not going to let Alabama take another loss. So yeah,
they're not going to let.
Of all of those, I would almost feel better about that one than most of the other matchups. I probably will take LSU, or to probably take Alabama to cover that. I'll have to think about that a little bit more.
The other
ranked I see is Wake Forest and NC State. Wake Forest 4.5 point favorites. 2 other coaches that
you trust Wake Forest there at all, Dave, after last week?
Or? After last week, yeah. Is that why you're bringing this up right now? Like you just
NC State's on their backup QB. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one too. I don't have a lot of faith in either team at this point, just for where they're at. Wake Forest, I just don't trust, and NC State's playing a backup quarterback, so you never know exactly what you're going to get. And as we all know, they take no reps with the first team, so you can't count on that at all. So.
You know, the other game that was pretty intriguing to me too was Arizona at Utah. Arizona is a 17.5-point dog to Utah, and they're in Utah, which obviously Utah always plays really, really well there. But these guys are kind of natural rivals since Utah has come to the Pac-12 because they're so close to each other and they're basically in the middle of nowhere. And Arizona's offense isn't terrible this year. Like if one thing they've been able to do, even against USC last week, they kept the game. 8. Yeah, they kept the game close, and I think that they actually covered on that game too. If I recall. They did. So, yeah, my dad's a big Arizona fan. My sister went to school there. I'm a big Arizona basketball fan. So he's always trying to talk football with me, which I could care less about or couldn't care less about. Is that right? Couldn't care less about. Sorry. And, but that's an interesting one too, because I feel like that game will end up being closer. I think 17.5 is a really big spread against Utah for Arizona, because I think if anything, their offense will keep them in it. They'll probably lose, but I don't think by 3.5 scores or whatever it is. So,
yeah, I hear you. All right, guys. Anything else on your board you want to talk about?
Not yet. No, always more later this week.
Well, I just want to thank Kathy Honke. Actually, again this week, she made me a winner again. I think I got 6 out of 10 right. Following her, I went straight money line bets on all of them.
We need to bring her on the show.
I did not do the round robins, but I did the individual games plus a 10-team parlay because one of these days it's going to hit. But and I did not do large bets, granted, because some of those money lines are pretty big. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I actually came out a winner. I think I ended up on the in the black, so that's good. And I just want to thank her again because that's 2 weeks in a row. So Kathy, send me your picks again, because I am actually looking forward to putting down a little bit, and hopefully I'll make enough so that when I come out for the game here against Wisconsin in a couple weeks with my son, I'll just be able to buy you a beer, because that's about how much money I win.
Well, plus I don't think she drinks, so you'll have to drink that.
No, she drinks wine. I think she drinks like white wine or something like that.
Well,
she'll tell me. She'll text me. She'll probably text me here in about 2 seconds.
All right.
So.
Well, we know the show usually comes in and we start talking about Honke's wife's drinking habits. So let's get some parting shots in here. And Boomer, what do you got for me?
Well, I don't have much of a parting shot this week. Some we've talked about, with congratulations to Husker soccer, making it further than they have in a while, and women's sports in general looking pretty solid. And, men's basketball, I think maybe we can always hope that Hoiberg's been playing a little reverse psychology. Like last year, they smoked Colorado.
Got them where we want them, Boomer.
Game, and everyone was all confident and great. And this year, maybe we're taking it easy. We're keeping the cards close to the vest, and we're going to come out and stun everybody early on this year and make it to double-digit wins. So let's hope for that. So, God almighty.
All right, Rob, get us out of here.
First is my shout out to Boomer for texting me and saying, "Are you getting on here real quick?" Because I was actually sitting in a distillery for a meeting that I had for work. I forgot what time it was, realized I had to be here, and sure enough, I got here right at the end of the hot take. So thank you, Boomer. I appreciate that, because
I'm here to help.
I don't know where I'd be without you. And also, keep your heads up, Husker Nation. It feels like, and I hate to say this because Mickey said he wasn't going to try to win the press conference, but it feels like he's saying a lot of the things that should be said right now. When it comes to ideal offense being the run game, and it feels like he is getting a little bit more and more serious about hopefully trying to at least make sure that we salvage this season and make a bowl game. So I think we're going to win 3 out of the next 4. Probably lose to Michigan, but we're going to take out Iowa. We're going to take out Wisconsin.
Quite the accomplishment.
Yeah, I agree. But like I said, man, I'm an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist. All right. So it's going to happen this weekend. We know what Minnesota's going to do. We just have to stop them. And we're going to do it. And we're going to have a great Saturday. And we're all going to be living our lives. Go Big Red.
All right, and those words of wisdom there from Redcast Rob. Let's call that a Go Big Redcast.
Go Big Red.